The US has approved the use of controversial cluster bombs in Ukraine despite over 100 countries banning their use. NATO's Secretary-General outlines plans and pledges support for Ukraine ahead of the Vilnius summit.
The Dutch government resigns following a breakdown in talks within the four-party coalition over migration measures, while the opposition calls for a general election.
The US says it will provide controversial cluster bombs to Ukraine despite them being banned in over 100 countries. American National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the US would not leave Ukraine defenseless and said Kyiv had promised to use them carefully.
So clearly a capability that would be useful in any type of offensive operations. I would note that the Russians have already been employing cluster munitions on the battlefield, many with which include a very high dud rate reportedly.
Many EU countries have signed up to a treaty that prohibits them, and some member states like Germany say they're unacceptable.
Auch ich habe die Medienberichte verfolgt. Als Vertragsstaat gilt für uns das Oslo-Abkommen.
The US announcement was part of a military aid package for Ukraine worth €735 million. NATO's summit in the Lithuanian capital Vilnius next week is likely to reaffirm the organization's commitment to welcoming Ukraine as a new member. Ahead of the meeting, NATO's Secretary-General outlined a three-point plan to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
First, we will agree a multi-year program of assistance to ensure full interoperability between the Ukrainian armed forces and NATO. Second, we will upgrade our political ties by establishing the NATO-Ukraine Council. And third, I expect ally leaders will reaffirm that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and unite on how to bring Ukraine closer to its goal.
The summit will also seek to unblock Turkey's veto on Sweden's membership and make progress on other aspects of strengthening the alliance.
The Dutch government has reportedly collapsed. Deep divisions over migration policy reform have put an end to Prime Minister Mark Rutte's four-party coalition. His Conservative VVD party had urged its partners to restrict immediate family members of war refugees from reuniting. Negotiations turned sour on Wednesday after Rutte proposed a limit of 200 family members reuniting with refugees per month after a 2-year wait. Rutte is the country's longest-serving Prime Minister. A general election will likely be called in the autumn.
Delegates from the world's leading oil-producing countries held a 2-day meeting in Vienna, but without representation from the host country. The 8th OPEC conference was titled Towards a Sustainable and Inclusive Energy Transition. The conference examined the current global energy landscape, energy security and innovation.
We must do everything we can to reduce emissions, not reduce energy. There is a misconception going around about reducing production, reducing investment in oil and gas. We do not agree with this message. We believe that all sources of energy will be required for the future, renewables included. There is no one source of energy that can do it all alone.
We have to accept that transition takes time. So I count on probably 2 industrial generations, so 2 times 25 years, to manage that transition. So there will be a coexistence. Yeah? The question now is how can we help each other to accelerate that transition? Yeah?
It comes as Saudi Arabia and Russia both cut oil exports to help stabilize prices in the face of high market volatility.
Kétnapos ötletbörzére jöttek össze az olajtermelő országok Bécs elegáns kastélyában, a Hofburgban. A találkozó célja, hogy kiderítsék, merre is menjen tovább az iparág. Az elmúlt időszakban ugyanis többször visszafogták már a termelést, de ez egyetlen egyszer sem vezetett az árak emelkedéséhez. Így az olajtermelő országoknak most új ötletekre van szükségük. Az Euronews-t Szilágyi Károly tudósította Bécsből.